Okay, I think it is rolling. So, my friend Elaine messaged me yesterday asking me if there were upcoming elections in the Tulsa area. Now, there are not. There are special elections upcoming on November 9th, I believe, and those are happening throughout Oklahoma, but they are not happening in the Tulsa area. And it's actually quite confusing when you look into this. When you Google around to find out when your elections are, even when you go through some of the nonprofits that work on voter registration and civics education broadly, you'll find that it takes quite a bit of time and resources to find out when and where special elections are, let alone what they're for. And, you know, it reminded me of, there's this concept that we learned about in the bureaucracy and policymaking class called administrative burden. As far as I understand, this concept was at least popularized by authors named Harvey and Hurd. Oh, there's another one. I know I'm blanking on it. Moynihan, Harvey, and Hurd. And the concept kind of goes like this. So, while it is true that legislators make decisions about regulations and the process through which individuals may have to go through to obtain public services, bureaucracies also make policies. And some of these policies increase the amount of time and effort that it takes to learn about public programs. And this goes for voting as well. So I think that in the 2014 article, there's 3 types of administrative burdens. There are learning costs. Let's see. Compliance costs and psychological costs. And I think the research found that, don't quote me on this, but I think it's compliance costs had the strongest association between, what was it, their existence and the effect that they have on the behavior of those receiving services. You could probably infer what these mean, but basically learning costs are kind of the costs that Elaine was talking about, right? The costs of having to learn about the public program, learn about how to operate through it, and learn about what it can provide you. And then there are psychological costs, and the psychological costs just concern, if I am remembering correctly, it's just the effect that it has on you as a person of going through the program. I think this has been most saliently investigated through welfare programs. So the idea being like shame could be one of these psychological costs, or the stress of having to go through a bureaucracy, especially one that might not treat you with the utmost respect relative to other organizations that you tend to go through on a day-to-day basis. And then compliance costs are just everything to do with keeping up with the program. You're putting in effort to be verified by the program. So in voting, this would be like making sure that you're registered on time. This would be a compliance cost. Making sure that you keep up with your voter registration. That when you move, you're registering to vote in that area. And, you know, this might be particularly exigent for college students who are registered in places outside of the locations that they live in. So anyway, there's a book on it. I think the book came out a couple years ago, a bit after the original research article, and the book is just called Administrative Burden. I think the subtitle is Policymaking by Other Means. But anyway, this is not unique to voting. This is widespread across a variety of public programs, particularly those that directly deliver services to citizens, as opposed to those that don't, those that maybe deliver services through contracting with private organizations, which may have their own administrative burdens that they impose. Actually, it's kind of interesting. There are some organizations that are incentivized to do this. There's a concept in bureaucracy called cream skimming, and I'm sure that this concept exists in other domains as well. But cream skimming kind of goes like this. So you have options about the types of users that you can select to use your program, right? So you have demand that's higher than the supply, and then there's basically like incentive structures that facilitate your interest in choosing the best clients, right? Or the most profitable clients. So in the private sector, it might be obvious what a profitable client is, but there's also profitable clients in the public sector, right? Especially where bureaucracies and like those local service delivery organizations are incentivized to provide services and report on performance. And this has been like really salient since the 80s. So for example, like if you are a welfare bureaucracy, you might be incentivized on the amount, or you might be monitored based on and having to report the number of people that receive welfare, whether it's food stamps or TAMF check or whatever, through your organization. And you might have to report how many people use it for those 2 years and then get off of it and get a job, or get a job during the same time. And in states or regions where the money that the organization gets are tied to pay points, you would have an incentive as a bureaucracy to only provide those services to those individuals that have the highest likelihood of being a successful client, right? A profitable client. And often those are people who have the least amount of struggles pertaining to attaining jobs, right? Those who don't have struggles with mental illness, those who have access to resources and just happen to maybe be in a time in their lives in which they're between employment, right? These kinds of individuals may be selected more so, which is a problem if we think that the goal of these public services is to help those in need. So, I could rant about this a bit more. I think I'll leave this video there. If you have any questions about this, or if you want to talk about the nature of public service or administrative burden, please reach out to me. And if you're really interested, just buy the book. It should be available on Amazon for a reasonable price, probably under $100. I don't think it's textbook status or anything. So yeah, just notes to think on. I will talk to you all later.